Right now, let's talk to Daniel Rubenstein, former advisor to Benjamin Netanyahu, because a relatively historic moment, I think, yesterday happened in international relations between Israel and Lebanon. Israel doing a ceasefire deal with Hezbollah. Let's have a look at what Joe Biden has to say.
Under the deal reached today, effective at 4 a.m. tomorrow local time, the fighting across the Lebanese-Israeli border will end. This is designed to be a permanent cessation of hostilities. What is left of Hezbollah and other terrorist organizations will not be allowed, well, I emphasize, will not be allowed to threaten the security of Israel again.
The first meaningful end to fighting, I suppose, really, since October the 7th of last year. Let's talk to Daniel Rubenstein and find out what he makes of it. Daniel, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Is it indeed a ceasefire that will last for a long time? Is it a trial? How's it going to play out?
Well, it feels like we've been here before, and it was not that long ago, in the summer of 2006, when Hezbollah started a war against Israel, fired thousands of rockets against Israel, and that war ended with a ceasefire. It was a UN Security Council resolution called 1701, and that resolution effectively called for Hezbollah to disarm and for the Lebanese army to disarm it with the help of the United Nations. Now, that didn't happen. The Lebanese army didn't do its job, the United Nations didn't do its job, the international community didn't do its job, and Hezbollah reached the point where it became as strong as it was, that it was able to carry out a war against Israel for the past 13 months. Now, so I just heard President Biden say that he wants this to be a permanent end to hostilities.
Right.
There's a word for permanent end to hostilities, and that is peace. Not a piece of paper, not a ceasefire, but peace. Right. And until we have peace between Israel and Lebanon doesn't have a militia that doesn't answer to the Lebanese government, I don't see how it can be permanent.
And what is the status of Hezbollah right now? Because Israel's been pretty effective, has it not, in dismantling most of what Hezbollah used to do, but presumably they haven't yet eradicated it.
I think you're correct. After a year of war, the Israeli military is in a much stronger position and Hezbollah is in a much weaker position. Let's look and see what happened to Hezbollah over the past year since it decided to start a war on the side of Hamas. Hezbollah lost much of its senior leadership, including top warlord Hassan Nasrallah and his successors, many of its senior fighters, its jihad council, and right on Israel's border, we're talking a few football fields away from the villages in northern Israel. You go over a couple of hills, you're inside Lebanon, you're in the villages. Hezbollah in these villages had a massive military infrastructure, rockets, tunnels, positions that would enable Hezbollah to carry out a surprise invasion of Israel, much worse than what Hamas was able to do on October the 7th of last year. So this capability of Hezbollah has been eliminated, its rocket stockpiles have been dramatically reduced, and its senior leadership has been dramatically reduced.
Yes. However, I guess a lot depends on the Lebanese government and the Lebanese army as well, because I think I'm right in saying that Biden and the Biden administration has supplied quite a lot of money to Lebanon's government, official government, if you like, presumably to outlaw and continue to outlaw Hezbollah and to try and build up their own military might so that, you know, they can't allow Hezbollah to operate anymore.
Yes, you're correct. I don't think that Hezbollah, and especially its Iranian backers, who are quite powerful, are going to sit back and do nothing as the Lebanese government would move in and try to disarm what's left of Hezbollah. In other words, Hezbollah would put up a fight, and if Hezbollah is putting up a fight against the Lebanese army, that's called civil war.
Right.
So essentially what we're calling for in Lebanon is for the central government to take responsibility for all of Lebanon, but in effect that becomes a civil war in Lebanon. So if Hezbollah is not weak enough now, and if Iran is able to keep refunding and resupplying Hezbollah, there is a concern that we could be in a similar position a short time from now.
Because I'm told that large parts, if not all, of Beirut, certainly southern Beirut, is pretty much controlled by Hezbollah, and you don't go into those regions and those parts of Beirut unless you get permission.
That's right. It's not just the southern part of Lebanon on Israel's border that is controlled by Hezbollah, but Hezbollah is also very powerful in parts of the Lebanese capital and in parts of the Lebanese government. In other words, Hezbollah participates in Lebanese government. They have enough power to shut down certain decisions that would, in effect, lead to Hezbollah's disarmament. So Hezbollah is not just a military in southern Lebanon, it's a political force and a regional power at this point.
And presumably northern Israel is still unoccupied by the residents who have left their houses by the tens of thousands. I think there's about 70,000 people dislodged from northern Israel. Are they able to go back now as a result of this ceasefire, or what's happening there?
At the moment, the residents of northern Israel do not feel confident enough to go back home. They are going to wait and see. This is a 60-day ceasefire that we're talking about, so we're going to monitor any violations. If Hezbollah tries to rearm, if Iran sends weapon shipments, all of this would be considered a violation and the war could resume. So at the moment, these residents of northern Israel who lived right on the border, they're going to wait and see a little bit longer to see what happens with this ceasefire and the new American administration starting January 20th.
Yeah, okay. And I'm seeing a bit of breaking news right now here from various different sources saying Hamas are now also ready for a ceasefire in Gaza, funnily enough, after this announcement from Hezbollah in Lebanon. How seriously would you take that?
Well, the idea that Hamas is ready for a ceasefire is in a way laughable. They could just do it. They could cease fire, they could release the hostages, they could lay down their arms and let all of us, Israelis and Palestinians alike, move on to a better future where there's not this terrorist army in Gaza on our borders that is continuing to hold 101 Israeli hostages that it took on October the 7th of 2023. Hamas needs to let all of them go and lay down its weapons so that a better future can be built. If it wants to do that, now's the time.
And is the Netanyahu administration looking forward to the Trump administration coming back in, do you think?
In Prime Minister Netanyahu's comments yesterday to the Israeli public, he hinted that the current Biden administration is withholding some shipments of weapons, and perhaps this suspension could be lifted if when the Trump administration takes power on January 20th. But again, it's wait and see. There's a lot going on. We're fighting a war not just in Lebanon, not just in Gaza, but on 7 different fronts. It's Hamas in Gaza, it's Hezbollah in Lebanon, it's terrorists in the West Bank, it's the Houthi pirates in Yemen, it's Iranians in Syria, it's the Iranian regime itself and militias in Iraq. So we're talking about a very complex geostrategic environment. And this tactical pause, this ceasefire with Hezbollah in Lebanon must be seen in this context.
And so do you think 2025 could be a breakthrough year, though, in terms of just finding some form of peace?
It's hard to imagine. I can only say that I hope so, but at this point, it does not appear that there are any responsible leaders, whether in Gaza or in Lebanon, who are willing to say, you know what, enough is enough. We've lost this war. Let's accept defeat. Let's move on and let's build something else. No, quite the opposite. Hezbollah, Hamas, and its supporters believe that they're fighting a religious war that commands them to fight Israel until Israel is destroyed. So until we can come up with an alternative to that, we have to be on guard at all times.
Daniel Rubenstein, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us, former advisor to Benjamin Netanyahu. I would say cautiously optimistic perhaps, but not entirely thrilled with the possibility that this could be the end of the hostilities, either in Lebanon or indeed in Gaza.